I here have Anita Fordin, communication coach, and we're going to just talk to her about, her story and then just get to know her a little bit. So hi, Anita.
Hi, how you doing, Malou?
Hi, good. So, before we kind of dive into your story, why don't you just present yourself and what you do?
Okay, well, I'm Anita Fordin, if you want to know the last name, and I am a communication coach and therefore sort of an empowerment coach from that. What I do is I talk to individuals and professionals and corporations, and we kind of get down to creating communication environments that lead to positivity, productivity, better relationships, because really we just need to kind of flip communication on its head, especially with all that's been going on in the world. We really need to relearn how we communicate with each other in order to get better results, if you want.
Right. Yeah, that's really powerful. Yeah, absolutely. So, yeah, I like to kind of ask coaches, to share one of their best coaching experiences as the receiver. Do you have any stories to share with us?
Sure. You mean my receiving coaching or my giving coaching?
You receiving coaching, yeah.
I think I would say probably one of the best experiences that I had was in college when one of my communication professors had given me some advice and some help during a project. I was really struggling with this project and really struggling talking to, the people I was trying to reach. And in that time, he had told me how to use language, not only as the words, but how to use language to impact the people that I was trying to reach, not only by the language itself, but the way that I put together my tone, my intention when entering the conversation. It was really eye-opening and made me realize that communication is so much more than just the words that we use.
Right. That's
Yeah.
so cool.
Really
Isn't it wonderful how, people along the way, just inspire us. And it really depends on, especially, like, yeah, the professors and the teachers that we had, they really, have an immense impact on us. And then I don't even think we really realize until, somebody asks us that question, really.
You don't, I realize sitting here now that my third grade teacher had an insane impact on me going forward, and even has an insane impact on me now without even thinking about it. I do things that I was taught at that time, or just by example, that still resonate with me now.
Right.
And she was, it was probably pretty much a challenge just to get me to sit still and not run around in the playground at that point.
Oh, really?
Yeah, pretty much.
So yeah, how did you get into coaching? Tell us your story.
Well, I guess it kind of goes back, like I just mentioned, my third grade teacher. I think at that time it wasn't really about language, right? When you're that small, you're getting into learning things, and you're figuring out how to use your language and everything. So I was always a big connector, and it went before I could speak. And then when I started speaking, then I started using words. From the minute I could talk, I started using words. I was very much the chatty girl in school. And when I was in third grade, I guess that's a perfect example. Yeah, that's pretty much when it started. In third grade was when I guess my teacher would say, you'd say she noticed that I had a knack for language, and she started having me read beyond the level that would normally be expected. And by the time I was in probably 8th grade, 9th grade, I was in these, they called them advanced English classes, but I really gravitated to language. And by the time I was first year in high school, I was reading and speaking and presenting at college level. I was editing college theses papers, which to me seemed totally normal, but people would say to me, wait, you're 15 years old and yet you're editing papers for people that are in their 20s and getting done with college. And I thought, well, okay, I'm just going with that. At the time it made me extra money as a 15-year-old, which, I needed money so that I could go to the mall, right?
Yeah, sure. So like communication always came really easy to you, and it was easy for you to understand people and how they maybe should be communicating compared to what they
Exactly.
actually did.
Yeah, exactly. I found that, we even like when I would see things on TV, these dramatic movies and things, and I would think to myself, I'm like, why didn't you just say this instead? It would have ended so much better. There wouldn't have been nearly as much drama. The job would have gotten done sooner, these kinds of things. And I've just really always put solutions to language and connection with each other. If we can get those three things together, then everything will be so much better and run so much smoother. And connection is where it's at. So if we can get more connected, and language is one of the biggest ways we can do that, I say we go for it.
Right. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's really the thing. And then in college, I actually started my college career, and through most of my college career, I was going to be a psychologist. And then for my own thesis, I interviewed several dozen psychologists for all kinds of information. And then at the end, I just asked each of them one question as to how they feel, how successful they felt I would be being a psychologist. And it was incredible because an overwhelming amount of them said, don't be a psychologist, Anita.
Oh, really?
At that time, I was crushed, but to be perfectly honest, they were completely right. All of them said that I was far too empathic and far too connected to be a psychologist. To be a psychologist, a successful psychologist or psychiatrist, you need to have that ability to disconnect. Yeah, I was all about getting in there and getting connected, and it just would have been damaging for me and not helpful to the people I was trying to help. So what I did was, at that point, I switched from being a psychology major to public speaking, because I could still then reach out and connect, and they could still connect back to me, but I wouldn't have to take all of that on. So I finished my college career in public speaking, and found that my final project, my final presentation ended up being some very important and influential people in my life. And they gave me very straight and honest reviews about what I was presenting, and really encouraged me to go further into that field. And so I started my journey from school, you take that little dip after school because you're like, oh, I am so going to Europe for a year and I'm taking a break. I've taken a lifetime to earn it.
Right.
And then I actually went into my work life, which I actually didn't go into public speaking to start with. I was in retail for a while, but it was wonderful because in retail, I was a team leader. When I was in the hospitality industry, I gravitated to being a team leader. And that's not because I'm so fantastic as a team leader. I don't think that was it. I think that I have an ability to connect to people and to bring out the best in them and encourage them to continue in their best. And that will then, it's sort of a ripple effect or domino effect. If you put out the best in you and it's encouraged, it will continue to go throughout the whole team.
Right.
Yeah. So that was pretty amazing. And
because I guess also, you working in different industries also kind of made a foundation for you to to not only communicate with people, you know, different people in different parts of, you know, their lives, but also, you know, yeah, to just, you know, really understand where people are coming from now that you're coaching them.
Right. And you know, that I would say, if there's one philosophy that I have in regard to being a communication coach, it's that as communicators and as connectors, we really need to change the conversation. We need to seek understanding rather than seeking to be understood. If we can make that switch, it'll not only change the conversation, it'll change how we perceive each other. It'll change how we see our goals, how we can achieve common goals together, rather than we're in a very splintered place in the world right now. So if we can change the way we speak to each other and connect, I think it'll change everything. So that's what I'm hoping to happen, if we can just go to understanding instead of being understood.
That's powerful stuff.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah. And then let's see, well, after, if I continue with that story, after being in training, I actually went into the weight loss industry for a while. And
Oh, wow.
that really changed it up, because I had been working with teams and we had all been going towards the same goal. But now it got very personal. You know, when people get to a point in their life in where they decide that they need to take on a weight loss journey, it's very personal. And I was a personal consultant for many people, men and women. And then I also taught lifestyle classes. So it was really fascinating to work with these people individually and to encourage them and to find where their strengths were, because these were people who felt lost, who felt incompetent to control what they ate, which feeds into a whole lot of other things. But I found that by being able to connect to them on a personal level, and then as they grew stronger, they're like, oh yes, I'm going to go to these group classes. I can do this. You know, I can talk to other people that have experienced it. And there's a whole lot of power in people. Yeah. There's so much to be said when you don't feel alone anymore. So I really feel like I helped these people be successful, not just because of me, but because I was able to introduce them to others that were willing to share their story, and they weren't feeling alone anymore.
Right.
And that was an incredible gift that was actually given to me by being able to experience that. And then I had a really big move. I moved to Italy.
Wow. Yeah.
With my husband and I moved to Italy. We had an opportunity, and so we grabbed that brass ring and off we went. And it was, you know, experience a new culture, new people. The wine, don't even get me started with the wine. And we actually moved to a small village in northern Italy, and I thought, oh, how charming and wonderful, and how could this get any better? It was fantastic, until it wasn't.
Oh,
yeah.
What happened?
Well, when I moved there, that village was a village of 800 people. Now, I'm a New Yorker. Okay. Didn't think that move would be so jarring to me as a person. But when we got there, I mean, I couldn't have articulated it at the time, but because I didn't speak any Italian at the time, I had only taken this sort of tourist, level 101 tourist English, one semester at community college to prepare us to go, and that was it. And it became clear to me that this language barrier wasn't just language. It was my ability to communicate to people and my ability to understand them. not just the language, to understand their lifestyle, to understand their thinking. And by not being able to communicate with each other, there was a level of connection that wasn't being established. And at the same time, because I was 6,000 miles away from my family, my friends, my colleagues, that connection was severed severely. At that time, the internet wasn't nearly as prolific as it is now. At that time, it was pretty much emails. I mean, you could totally communicate back and forth. And this might date me a little bit. That's okay. But there was a website that you could communicate on that was like a Facebook, MySpace.
MySpace, yeah.
MySpace. So it was just getting started, but it was not very approachable at that time. So I think I know what happened was that I sort of began to shrink in a village of 800 where I couldn't talk to anybody. I was feeling isolated, increasingly powerless. And it wasn't a good place to be, although my surroundings were unbelievably gorgeous. It's Italy. It is the movie, it's the book, it's everything you could possibly imagine. However, I couldn't take that and put it inside my own body, right? And although I didn't think of it at that time, I sure wish that I had someone that could have helped me navigate through that situation of the communication and the connection block. Because when it really came down to it, it wasn't the Italian versus the English language. It was finding that place in between that we could communicate and we could connect. And so it was definitely a stumbling block for me that lasted longer than I would have liked. It lasted for several years, and we ended up moving to a different city and with more people, and that definitely helped. And of course, by then I had learned more English and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I began to teach English actually to students, professionals, lawyers, et cetera, and by doing that, by actually teaching English to Italians, I learned that there was a distinct difference in the level of communication between individuals and professionals. And I thought, okay, so this doesn't have to do with the language itself, it has to do with the environment, and that they were still dealing with a sense of disconnection within their own communication. And I thought, well, okay, so you could have used help doing this yourself. Do you think you might be able to help here? And as it turned out, I could. So then it continued to develop in my becoming a communication coach, which actually started more in Italy than it did here or globally.
Yeah. That's really interesting. And I think your point, the lesson that you learn really, at some point realizing that you are in a situation where you actually don't really feel comfortable or feel happy, and then kind of maybe hit a crisis, and where many people just kind of stay there and they let themselves, fall into depression and these things, really try to turn it around, which is really hard to do when you're on your own. If you do not get help from a psychiatrist or a psychologist or a coach, but really look at yourself and say, okay, how can I turn this into something positive? How can I, learn from it and grow from it? And I think that's, congratulations, because that's not an easy thing to do.
No, and being on the other side, I think the worst part of it was that feeling of powerlessness, that you don't know how to change it, and if you did, how could you do it? And it's sort of a self-feeding spiral. It's a downward spiral. It's like a vortex. And if I was to say to anybody who's listening to this, who's watching this right now, if you are in a place where you feel like you are in your power, please do whatever you can to stay there, because it's a lot easier to retain it than regain it.
Right.
It's a lot more work. I'm here to say that it can be done. But I would rather have experienced a lot of the things I've experienced in my life from this place rather than struggling to get to this place and then figuring out how to enjoy or how to impact myself, how to influence others, however you want to, fill in the blank. But if you can, retain it, it's a lot easier than it is to regain it.
Yeah. So is it fair to say that now I hear you say that this, happened over several years, this, struggle, and then finally, the resolution came and you got to turn your life around basically, or your mindset. So is it fair to say that you could have cut down this time dramatically if you kind of got, maybe in touch with a coach or somebody to kind of help you turn it around faster?
Dramatically. At least I would say at least a decade. At least a decade.
So this just, shows the power of getting help and reaching out, and also what I hear you say, we talk about you're a communication coach, but really what I hear you say also is, it's not just how you communicate to other people or the cultures, it's also how you kind of communicate within yourself. Is that correctly understood?
Definitely. I mean, that's really where it all starts. If we can communicate to ourselves differently, and connect to ourselves in a way that encourages who we are and accepts who we are as beings, there's absolutely no stopping us. I like to think that the stronger connection that you have with yourself, the less emotional need you have from another. That doesn't mean that you don't want that connection. That means that you strive for it still, but you strive from a place of connection, not a place of, not a dark place, a place of anger, frustration, possibly despair. You get to be connected to, at the risk of sounding, boastful or conceited, if you change the conversation with yourself, I'm a great self-conversationalist. So some people think, talking to yourself, it's a little crazy. No, not really.
Right.
if that's a little crazy, then I've been there for a long time.
Yeah. But it sounds very easy, right? Because you're talking to yourself. So, that should be just like, okay, I'll just, change the conversation. But in my experience, it's something that's really hard to do. I went on this trip with my girlfriend, and after a couple of days, I noticed, her in a conversation, because some of it was also said out loud, right? So it was very negative and very, very harsh on herself. And I kind of said, did you realize that you have these negative things that you keep saying to yourself? And she's just like, no, I didn't even realize that. So and so
good on you for being a good friend, because sometimes that's what we need. Sometimes we need another person. Very often we need another person to say, hey, you're really great. You can really do all those things that you're saying you can't do. I've seen you do them, or I know that you can do them. Start thinking about that and thinking about all that you are instead of all that you're not.
Right. So to all of you out there, start listening to your friends and playing them back to themselves, maybe. So if you don't have any of these good friends, if you don't have friends that are, let's say, brave enough, because it is, it does take a little courage to say that to your friends. So if you don't have a friend that, sorry, go ahead.
It takes a lot of courage. It takes a lot of courage within yourself. And almost, it's a courage journey, with your friends and even on your own. Sometimes having those conversations with yourself take a lot more courage than you would think.
Right. So if you don't have a friend that can kind of play it back to you, how your dialogue with yourself is like, is there any tips to kind of realize that you're actually doing it, and also to kind of slowly start to change the conversation? How would you go about that?
What I would say, what I did, I'm a journaler, and I kind of did two things. I went back into journals that I had written. Unfortunately, my journey was several years. And I went back to some of my journals from previous years, and I was astounded to see that the conversation was still the same, and it wasn't pretty, and it was very self-damaging. So if you're a journaler, go back and look at those conversations, and you will see how damaging you have been possibly to yourself. And then maybe take those pages and rewrite them in a different way. It doesn't mean, you're all going to be, sunshine and rainbows, but if you can start to use language in a different way, if you're not a journaler, if you are, if you're a phone person, we have conversations with ourselves every day. When we wake up in the morning, we wake up and we say, oh, I have to do this, I have to do that, I don't want to do this, I want to do that. Well, just stick your phone on record and go through your schedule for the day and just talk it through, and then listen back to it. And you'll be amazed at what you hear. And then the same thing, re-record yourself and change your language. If you even just need to Google positive words, if the words to change it to don't even come to your mind, I completely get that, because the words that are there are very strong and very ingrained. Google positive words I can say to myself. And just get on your phone and start replacing the words you've been using. Just look it up on Google. Okay, well, I can say that I can do that, and I can say that that these are my strengths, and I'm good at this, and I'm good at that, and I'm going to approach this today with enthusiasm, and I'm going to have a vibrant day.
Right.
Just start saying those things to yourself and creating those conversations.
So before I heard you say that it doesn't have to be like rainbow. So is it fair to say that instead of just when you get up and you look in the mirror and you want to say, look at me, I am so fat or so ugly, it doesn't have to necessarily be changed to something positive, because maybe you don't feel like you're beautiful, but maybe just not be negative. Is that correct?
Exactly. That's the starting place. Sometimes when you go from, I can't believe what I'm saying in the mirror. This is just ugly, and I do not want to even get up and walk out the door. Sometimes it's today, it's determination. Sometimes today I'm going to get up and I'm just gonna do my hair. I'm going to run a brush through my hair, put on my trainers, and I'm going to go. And just saying that to yourself and then doing it is step one. Now, when you say get up and look in the mirror, it reminds me of my dad, who, when I was a little girl and didn't have any of the issues that I dealt with as an adult, he used to wake me up in the morning and take me into the mirror when he would shave, and who'd pop me up on top of the counter, and he would look in that mirror and he would say, there you are, Tot. He would call me Tot, T-O-T as a nickname. He goes, there you are, Tot. The world is not ready for you. You are ready to go, and you're going to show them everything that you are. Tell me you're going to show them everything you are. I'm like, Daddy, I'm going to show them everything I am. And he would wake me up, and I'd say that every morning.
Right. And some people, they're not fortunate enough to have a family situation that kind of, starts with building a foundation of, let's say, self-trust and courage and, self-confidence. So I guess we have to basically be our own parents. So you had a dad that kind of gave you that opportunity to see yourself as very young, as, beautiful and strong. So for these people who are not as lucky, I guess we kind of have to do that ourselves now. Is that correct?
Yeah, I would say if I was to give somebody, the Post-it notes, if let me just give you a phrase that you can put on a Post-it note, or as many Post-it notes as you want, and you can stick it on your mirror, you can put it in your car, you can put it on your refrigerator. Just start with one simple thing and just say, today, I believe in the power of me. Full stop.
Mm.
What does that mean? I don't know. Is it physical? Is it emotional? Those are things that everyone has to fill in as they go. But if you just believe in the power of me, and you have that phrase going through your head, whether that's, whether it just pops in every once in a while, you really start to bring it into your being, at least it's a starting point.
Right.
Just at least it's a starting point. So between the journaling and the phone, and then, the Post-it note on the mirror, maybe we can get a wave going,
Right. Oh, great. So Anita, are you working on any like projects at the moment?
I'm working on a project that I'm going to have on my website. Actually, it's already on the website. It's called the Confidence Project, and it's a way for people to connect with me for at least 3 months in order to really focus on that self-connection that we've been talking about here. And it's really interesting. And if you go to my website, anitafordin.com, you can find out all about it, who it's for, what it's about, and what you can expect from me. And then I'm also working on a listening project, because I think that a great deal of us, in order for us to achieve understanding, is we need to listen.
Right.
I have a something I say to myself is, if you want to empower yourself, listen. If you want to empower others, listen. And it all starts with listening to ourselves, each other, and between all of us. So the next project is all about listening.
Okay. That's very exciting. I'm looking forward to that. I definitely know somebody that could use that course. Maybe even
right
myself.
I'm right here. I can't wait to connect to people about it.
Yeah, what do you want listeners or viewers to take away from this conversation that we had today?
Well, I think that what I want them to take away is that when we change the conversation within ourselves and between each other, the conversation will change everywhere. And my impression is that we all want that conversation to change. We all want to be more connected. And that comes down to how we communicate and how we have those conversations. So if we can connect through communication, I think that it'll result in more positive relationships, more productive work environments, and more clarity. We will be able to express to each other what we really want, and we can really achieve what we really want in this life and what we really deserve.
Okay.
And it all starts with communication and connection.
So what is the best way to get in contact with you?
Well, I have my website at anitafordin.com. I'm also on Instagram at what is that? At connect.and.thrive. You can find me on Facebook at Anita Fordin, Communication Coach, and also on LinkedIn. So those are some pretty, those are 4 easy ways to find me anywhere in the world. Anywhere in the world.
Okay, that's great. So yeah, is there anything else that you want to share with us?
Gosh, I would say I would just love everybody to really seek connection with each other and to seek understanding instead of being understood. If we just open ourselves up and listen, there's nothing we can't achieve together.
Beautiful. Thank you so much, Anita, and I'm looking forward to talking to you next time.
Yeah, it'll be great. It was an honor. Thank you so much.
Bye.
Bye-bye.